Every builder, when constructing a house, wants to save money but without sacrificing quality. Using the example of this waterfall behind me, let's break down how you could pay either $70,000 or $17,000 for it. The same specifications, the same materials, almost the same builders. The quality is the same, but the price is almost 4 times less. How is that possible? Let's figure it out. For reference, this waterfall measures 15 feet by 30 feet. We have a natural slope which we use to let the water flow down. We have an upper basin from which the water will flow, 2 intermediate basins, a lower basin that collects the water, and at the end there is a skimmer with a pump that will return the water back. So this is a recirculating waterfall. The client gave me a fairly simple task and I started looking for contractors. Of course, this isn't my first house. I know how to find contractors, but this is my first waterfall, so the type of contractors was a bit different from standard construction contractors. So I scheduled 3 meetings. Out of those 3 meetings, 2 contractors showed up and 1 simply didn't come to the meeting. There are 3 types of contractors in the construction market. The first type of contractor is companies, large companies that you definitely see on all social networks and online. You might even see a sticker with their brand on a car somewhere. These are fairly large companies that invest a lot in marketing, handle large volumes of work, and as a rule have been in the market for many years. The second type of company is highly specialized firms that focus specifically on this business, only building waterfalls or fences or, for example, plumbing. In other words, these are narrowly specialized professional companies. And the third type is contractors who perform specific tasks, for example, laying this particular type of stone, or for instance, those who handle rough work like clearing the site. Or for example, they only do plantings, that is, they buy and plant the plants. So these are small, highly specialized contractors who usually work with their hands. What happened in my case? How did I manage to get the cost down from $70,000 to $17,000 for building this waterfall? The first thing I did was set up several meetings. I had 2 meetings. One meeting was with a contractor from a large company, a well-known one with a brand and great marketing. And the second meeting was with a specialized company that deals only with waterfalls and specifically landscaping with these waterfalls. Both companies came 2 days apart. I gave exactly the same technical assignment to both companies. Moreover, I sent each of them an email in which I clearly described what we needed. The size of the waterfall was exactly the same for both companies, and the initial requirements were absolutely identical. And after that, a few weeks later, I received 2 offers. The first offer was from the specialized company, and the price was $35,000. This included building the waterfall, planting the greenery, and creating the irrigation system. Lighting was not included in this case, but $35,000 was a price that I found reasonable. The next company, which by the way was the first to come to the meeting and was a large, well-known company, quoted a price of $70,000.
Building a house? Sign up for a consulting meeting.
So guys, look, it's the same specification, the same materials. The size of the fountain is 15 by 30, the same slope. The initial conditions are absolutely identical. So why is there such a big difference, twice as much? So companies of the first type. As a rule, these are companies that invest a lot of money in marketing. They'll show up to the meeting in a certain way with an iPad. It will be a branded car. I noticed that you can't schedule a meeting for the next day. You'll have to wait in line. You'll be sent a very beautiful commercial proposal which won't have any details, just a lot of words, everything vague, and at the end, a big price. So these companies operate according to a certain pattern which I just described. Companies of the second type most likely won't use software or fancy visual. They might even send you a commercial offer via text message, just stating how much it will cost. They probably won't have nice uniforms, and accordingly, the price of your product will be lower because they invest less in marketing. It's great when you can afford to invest a lot in marketing. I'm not judging that at all, but be prepared that as a client, you'll be the one paying for it. Another key difference between large companies and specialized ones is that large companies are likely to have several departments for different businesses. For example, they might sell plants, but at the same time they have departments that offer additional services such as building fountains, planting, installing irrigation systems, landscape lighting, design, and so on. In other words, they open additional departments, but their main business is selling plants. That's why the price at such companies will be higher. So why is the price higher? Because they hire subcontractors and add their own markup to the subcontractor's price. As a result, the price automatically goes up. Plus marketing, plus software, plus additional expenses, large companies have huge costs. All of this together results in a price of $70,000 for a fountain. And now let's get back to the contractors who are directly involved in building fountains. They don't have the high overhead costs of maintaining large companies. They don't pay for software and they don't do massive marketing. Most likely their sales model is based on referrals. Accordingly, their expenses are lower and their prices are lower. And as you can see, I got a price of $35,000. I received this via SMS, not through any special software and a fancy proposal. So which option did I choose, and what are the pros and cons? After the specialized company that offered $35,000, we bargained down to 28, couldn't start within a week. As I needed to begin the project, I started looking for an option that would be cheaper, faster, but still of the same quality. The first thing I did was my own research on how a waterfall is constructed. This was the first project of my life. I needed to figure it out. I thoroughly studied which systems are used, how to properly lay the stone, and what kind of base is needed. So you can now see everything we've done. This was all done based on certain technologies that I figured out, literally using the internet and ChatGPT, because now you can find everything in ChatGPT. And check out the video on our channel, how to use ChatGPT in construction. The second step I took was to literally write down on a piece of paper the contractors who needed to be involved in this project. That includes the mason, the laborer who just needs to prepare the area and lay the liner. There's also the plumber who can connect everything so the system works, and the electrician who will install the lighting, the low voltage lighting for our fountain. There's also the landscaper who will buy the plants and plant them once the stones are laid. So we have 5 subcontractors who can do this job. I found them right away, literally in one day, by calling through our contractor database. We have a very large number of contractors. Everyone agreed to start literally the next day, and we got to work. Of course, we needed to create a design. The design of the fountain is determined by its topography. That is, if there is topography, if it's a flat site, you draw one type of design. If it's a sloped site, you create a different type of design. For example, these intermediate waterfalls you see here, the black troughs are in place. In other words, they were determined by the landscape. It wasn't our idea to do it this way. These were simply the most convenient spots to place these intermediate basins for the waterfalls. After that, we got to work. So where did the price of $17,000 come from? All right, let's begin. First, stone. Stone cost $2,500 to $3,000, plus the mortar needed to lay it. Next, the liner and all the parts can be bought from a specialized supplier that sells all the components. This skimmer, the distribution basin, all the pipes, the pump. These guys deal exclusively with this. The whole set cost us $3,500. Everything else will go toward paying the contractors. That includes the mason, the lumber worker, and the electrician. Altogether, our total cost comes to $17,000. If you break down the cost of materials and labor, I'd say in this approach it's about 50-50. And of course, your own management. So the downside of this approach is that you have to deal with it every day. You have to be involved in the construction and understand what you're building and how it's done. Accordingly, your management also costs some money. For comparison, in the first case, the cost of materials is about 10 to 15%, and the rest is all added for management. In the second case, when a specialized company does the work, the cost of materials is about 20 to 30%, and the rest is labor. In our case, it's 50-50. If you think that the situation with the fountain was some kind of unique case, absolutely not. I encounter this every day. For example, the fence. We just finished the fence. The first price I got was $23,000. In the end, we finished it for $10,000. Guys, that's almost 2.5 times less. Draw your own conclusions. Of course, you can choose any approach, pay a large professional company, or a specialized one that does it themselves, or figure it out, break it down into parts, and manage the process yourself. The choice is yours. And of course, if you need my help, we have a course for builders or consulting services. Contact us through the link in this video, and we will definitely work with you.